Adidas is bringing the Supernova out of the bargain bin and giving it the flagship treatment. This is a Supernova Rise, and it's time to take it for a run. Yo, what's going on everybody? My name is Kofuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews shoes here on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys about the Adidas Supernova Rise. But before I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that was sent to me for the purpose of review. However, no one's paying me to make this video or to use the shoe, and no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Supernova Rise. And first, let's go over some specs. The main headline story for me in this shoe is that there is a new foam in here that I believe we're seeing for the first time from Adidas, and that's Dreamstrike Plus. On the information that I have on this foam is that it is made out of a supercritical process that incorporates 20% bio-based materials. Now, to stabilize this foam, what they do have on the bottom here is what looks like the rods that we've seen in some of the Adidas racing shoes, but instead of having like carbon or carbon-like elements as rods, they're using EVA as kind of like a base layer underneath the squishier foam up top in order to give it a more stabilized feeling. And then to protect all this foam and to give you some traction, there is pretty much a full layer of rubber coverage that's on the outsole here. And it isn't continental rubber, but I found that it is pretty grippy. Moving to the top, we have a very stretchy upper that is super comfortable, a very padded tongue, a little bit more padded than I tend to like for my daily trainers. And then that padding also continues all the way through the back into the heel cup. Now there's just a lot of stuff that's going on in the back of the shoe. One, there is this giant bevel, which we've seen in a lot of other Adidas shoes. It's something that they put back in here for people as they're hitting the ground to avoid any dragging that's on the back of the shoe. So it helps things kind of move forward through the gait cycle a little bit more smoothly. But this is probably one of the more extreme kind of like heel bevels that I've seen in an Adidas shoe. And in addition to that, there's just a lot of structure in the back of the heel too. There is a very thick and long piece of plastic that's back in here, giving this thing a lot of structure and rigidity. So for those of you who really like to be kind of like inside the cup and kind of locked in ball and socket joint style, this is the kind of heel cup that you're going to be looking for. Overall, this shoe comes in at a relatively light weight of 277 grams or 9.7 ounces. All right, now that we've gone over some of the specs on the shoe, let's talk about what it was actually like to run in it. And simply put, I gotta tell you that I absolutely love the Dreamstrike Plus midsole foam. I feel like it's lighter than Boost and softer than Lightstrike. It's like the kind of daily training foam that I'm really looking for in 2023 going into 2024 when I'm looking for that daily training everyday experience, something that I could use to log in the bulk of my mileage for the week. Dreamstrike Plus is one of those really great new foams that has hit the market. It certainly has that supercritical foam feeling where you're squishing it quite a bit, and it also snaps back in a really peppy and lively way. And then the EVA kind of rod system or stabilizer layer of EVA that they have in here does a really nice job of keeping things nice and stable, so there is a little bit less chaos in the shoe as your foot hits the ground. It's also got a pretty wide footprint through the toe box and through the middle of the arch as well. And that's also gonna help the shoe from feeling like it's not gonna be tipping over depending on how your foot may be hitting the ground. Overall, the sensation that I'm getting from the shoe, that it's got really nice cushion with each step, but it's still fun to get around in. As far as fit, I'd say it's a very comfortable shoe. The upper material that they're using is stretchy, breathable, and very comfortable. The padding, although a bit excessive for my personal taste, is really nice and comfortable and plush around the top of the foot and around the back of the ankle. And I'd say that the toe box is a lot more accommodating than the other daily trainer that I've been really enjoying from Adidas this year, which is the Adidas SL. I went true to size in this shoe, and that was a size that really worked well for me. And because of the overall comfort of it, I do feel like the shoe not only makes for a really great daily training shoe, but it also makes for a pretty comfortable casual shoe that you can just wear around. Now, the only kind of one negative thing that I would say about the shoe is probably also for a lot of you what would be the most positive thing about the shoe. Because of that stabilizer layer of EVA foam that's underneath it, I do feel like it kind of is a little bit less eager to pick up the pace. So I'm not sure that I would reach for this shoe for a really intense or fast workout, but for the bulk of the miles that I'm running in a week, I feel like the shoe will do just great. And that also means, conversely, for those of you who look at some of the other shoes that I might tend to favor and say those shoes are just way too squishy, way too bouncy for me, something like this is going to be a little bit more stable without being a stability shoe and might be exactly the kind of thing that you are looking for. So now let's close out the video by talking about some shoes that you can pair the Supernova Rise with if you wanted to create a rotation around this very good daily trainer. And then we'll get into some buying options and some competitors. First, in terms of creating the rotation, you've got the Supernova Rise here as your daily trainer. This is what you're going to do most of your daily easy runs in. And then for those workouts, there's another shoe from Adidas, and I think we could keep it all in the Adidas family for this rotation, that I love for workouts, and that's the Takumi Sen 9. It's a shoe that has Lightstrike Pro in it and has those energy rods that are the inspiration for that stabilizer EVA that's in the Supernova Rise. But this is a very lightweight, very nimble, very fast shoe that I love taking for my quickest workouts and even for some of my longer marathon workouts as well. And then when it comes to race day, I think the pairing option would be then to bump up to the Adidas Pro 3. This is a fantastic racing shoe. It's kind of like a lot of things that are in the Takumi Sen 9, but bulked up a little bit so you could take it for marathon distance or for those longest, most challenging of marathon workouts. And I feel like the Supernova Rise and the Adidas Pro 3 make a fantastic combo. All three of these shoes together would make for a very fine lineup and rotation to have for your next marathon build. All right, now let's talk about some competitors and go outside the Adidas lineup and talk about pricing and what those potential alternatives may be. The Supernova Rise releases on December 1st, and the price for the US is going to be $140. And I feel like, unfortunately, we've gotten to that point where $140 is like the standard daily trainer price. But ultimately, I feel like you're getting a lot of shoe here, and I do think that it is a good value. The shoe that I feel like maybe is not the closest competitor though, but the one that I think you guys are going to be asking the most questions about is another shoe that releases on December 1st, and that's going to be the Asics Nova Blast 4. There's a lot of similarities between these two shoes on paper that makes the comparison very natural, and that's why I'm going to start here. Both of them have 20% bio-based foams in the midsole and have pretty similar kind of squish dynamics as far as the foams go. And both of these shoes also happen to be $140, but there is a lot to be said for the way a midsole is sculpted and the stack heights and geometries and whether or not there are stabilizing elements that moderate or dampen the effects of the foam. And that's what I think makes the biggest difference in terms of the performance between the Nova Blast 4 and the Supernova Rise. The Nova Blast 4 has a much taller stack height and nothing but the FF Blast Plus Eco in this shoe, and it makes for a springier, lighter, a little bit more peppy experience than you would find in the Supernova Rise. But on the other hand, the Supernova Rise is going to be a much more stable experience, and it has a lot more rubber on the outsole. So if those are two things that are very high on your list of priorities, that's where I might look for the Supernova Rise over the Nova Blast 4. Now let's talk about the other two shoes though that also released this year that I think are even closer competitors to the Supernova Rise. And let's start with the one that I think is the absolute closest, and that's one that came out in the beginning of the year. That's the Hoka Clifton 9. I feel like these two foams are pretty much exactly the same, but the differences in the shoes come down largely to the geometries and the stack heights of the shoes. I feel like both of these shoes are relatively wide as far as daily trainers go, so there's kind of some of that inherent stability in it because of the width of the footprint that you're landing on. And that shoe comes in at $145, so you're paying a $5 premium for a slightly lighter and slightly peppier, but maybe less stable shoe than the Supernova Rise. Now, the last shoe that I'm gonna talk about today, again, provides a very similar experience, and that's going to be the 1080 version 13 from New Balance. This has a reconfigured Fresh Foam X foam in the midsole this year, and it's nothing but that midsole foam that is squishy yet bouncy, very reminiscent of what you're getting in the Supernova Rise. But I'd say this one, because it's not quite as wide in the footprint as the Clifton 9 or as the Supernova Rise, so it's going to give an even more kind of nimble, peppy experience than those two shoes are going to deliver. So depending on what you're looking for, again, you might be gravitating towards the Supernova Rise with its much more stable experience, or the 1080 version 13, which has a very lively and fun, agile experience to it. It's also a much lighter shoe as well. That shoe though, you're gonna pay a price for that lightness and agility because it comes in at $165, so a $25 premium. And now I keep talking about all these shoes in terms of one is more fun and peppy, or one is more stable or has a dampened experience, but all of these shoes are relatively close to each other in the types of experience that they're providing. And there's just very subtle differences that I think that a lot of you guys are gonna have to end up going to the running store and trying them on in person to really understand what those differences are. If I could kind of put them in like a spectrum of like peppy and maybe unstable to like dampened and stable, I would say like the Supernova Rise is all the way on one end and the Nova Blast is on the other end. And then you've got the 1080 and the Clifton 9 kind of in the middle there. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense in understanding not only the Supernova Rise, but some of these other shoes that have come out much later in this year that I feel like all are doing a fantastic job of delivering like exactly the kinds of experiences I'm looking for in a daily trainer in 2023 and into 2024. So those are my thoughts on the Supernova Rise. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to talk to you guys in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?